they got really aggressive and went over to her driver's side door and tried to open her door, and then she obviously got spooked and started to reverse, and then an officer approached her and leaned across, like got in front of her vehicle, and then leaned across the hood of her car and shot her point blank in the face. Those 3 or 4 shots.
Absolutely ripped bozo.
She was trying to stage an illegal blockade of the road to interfere with ICE agents. Okay, and that which is a serious crime.
The only thing you have to do is crush them. You crush them completely. You never go like after you say basically after you run one of them over, right? Or you one of them for trying to run you over, then you victory lap around it and you send in more people and you do it even more.
That's how these imbeciles speak.
The invention of the internet changed the face of the planet. Different peoples from all walks of life, who previously had no voice, suddenly had platforms that could reach thousands, even millions of people. Minorities and niche communities that were previously both oppressed and suppressed could suddenly bypass traditional media gatekeepers and take their message straight to the people who wanted, and sometimes needed, to hear it. Without the internet, watershed movements such as Black Lives Matter and Me Too would have never been able to reach the heights that they did. To awaken people around the world to systemic injustice, to educate on a mass scale. On the other hand, it has allowed some of the most regime-pilled, fascist bootlickers the world has ever seen to make more money than God parroting the talking points of an increasingly authoritarian state, leading to your chud cousins and your co-workers alike believing things so obviously at odds with the evidence of their own eyes and ears that you would be forgiven for believing that the internet was not just a mistake, but the technological equivalent of a lobotomy.
These people, again, are coddled, living lives of luxury, and they go out and it's all a game to them. They go out because they're bored, and they get to feel like they're freedom fighters or whatever. So the only way to get through to them is with severe punishments. That's the only message that works.
The rise of the conservative influencer is not a phenomenon that begins with the proliferation of social media, however. Every regime has had its propagandists, and every new medium of communications comes with its own unique flavor of crackpot.
They have discovered that Obama does have slave blood.
Rush Limbaugh was doing what Asmongold and Nick Fuentes do long before either of them had the misfortune to not be aborted, and he did it all on talk radio. Gabriele D'Annunzio, the man who invented fascism, was a poet. And while I'm not suggesting that if you go back in time far enough, you'll find town criers who like to use dead rats as alarm clocks, mostly because they'd almost immediately die of the plague if they tried, every state has people whose mission it is, whether they are assigned it directly or take it upon themselves, to spread the regime's narrative, to twist the truth for the benefit of those in power, even if it does not benefit them themselves. And these people are infinitely more important in times when the state needs the public to believe a lie, because if the public know and believe the truth, the public might decide that the state is no longer legitimate.
She had been stalking and impeding their work all throughout the day. ICE agents repeatedly ordered her to get out of the car and to stop obstructing law enforcement, but she refused to obey their commands. She then proceeded to weaponize her vehicle, and she attempted to run a law enforcement officer over. This appears as an attempt to or to cause bodily harm to agents, an act of domestic. The ICE officer, fearing for his life and the other officers around him and the safety of the public, fired defensive shots. He used his training to save his own life and that of his colleagues.
That's fine, dude. I'm not mad at you.
Trump's America is not the first instance in history of a so-called post-truth society, but it should worry people that many of the other examples in recent history of nations where state-approved lies are accepted over clear and evidenced truths have been in the service of some of the greatest tragedies in modern history. For a current example of this, you need look no further than the Israeli government's Hasbara, a Hebrew term for explaining away actions, whether or not they are justified. And if you've been paying attention for the last 2 and a bit years, you'll have seen this in action in tragic clarity. Remember the media storm about how Israel would never blow up a hospital after they had clearly just blown up a hospital? Well, there have been many more hospitals blown up by Israelis since then, and the people that provided cover for that attack have been absolutely silent on every hospital since. In fact, as their favourite regime did the unthinkable, they spent 2 years not admitting they were wrong and trying to stop the escalating horrors. Instead, they dug their heels in and defended the indefensible over and over again, switching to different arguments, insisting that events that were caught in 4K simply weren't real, were staged, or weren't as bad as they looked.
There is no tunnel that justifies toddlers in the head. Israeli snipers.
Does this guy not know how sniping jobs work? Like, the problem with sniping isn't, like, the accuracy is not because obviously you got your scope and the fucking, like, yeah, it's quite easy, you can accurately snipe, but targets and personnel move really, really fast when you're sniping. Like, snipers make their decisions in less than a split second in combat situations. Unless he's suggesting there were just a couple of kids sitting on the hill and a guy opposite in a building just went, got him, take him out. Maybe someone committed a war crime. But I don't think that's Israeli policy, is to snipe kids for no reason. To snipe toddlers, but okay.
The thousands of videos of atrocities could all be hand-waved away. Don't believe your lying eyes, they insisted. Believe, instead, the word of the Israeli government. Their job is not to provide truth, it's to run cover for power. And we see the very same methods on display right now in the United States of America. In Donald Trump's first term, people were rightly concerned about the use of so-called alternative facts. In his second term, the insistence by Trump and his team that they are the only people who can determine what truth is has grown more acute.
They're giving, Sean Spicer, our press secretary, gave alternative facts to that. But the point remains. Wait a minute, alternative facts?
More so now than even his first term, there is a plethora of high-profile influencers who are more than happy to echo the narrative of this administration, no matter how untrue and no matter how inflammatory. Because this current slate of far-right influencers is just as invested in the long-term project of the Trump regime as the administration itself. And that insistence on narratives built on lies has never been more apparent than in the aftermath of the murder in broad daylight of mother of 3 Renee Nicole Good by an ICE agent in Minneapolis. In days gone by, people used to wonder to themselves how it came to be that Germans under the Third Reich became desensitized to the horrors of the regime. How could it possibly be that an entire country of people became desensitized to and even cheered on state terror? Neighbors being kidnapped from their homes and off the street, shoved into ghettos and into camps, their lives extinguished for speaking out, for being the wrong religion, for being an undesirable. The answer is, this is how.
The bottom line is this: when a federal officer gives you instructions, you abide by them, and then you get to keep your life.
The woman who lost her life was a self-proclaimed poet from Colorado, with pronouns in her bio.
I'm gonna be honest.
This is so ridiculous, it's funny now.
This is classic terrorism. The Daily Mail says she leaves behind a lesbian partner and a child from a previous marriage.
They called for mass murder. They threatened law enforcement officials. They defied the rule of law. And they're not doing so because the lesbian agitator was death in Minnesota. They're doing it precisely because it's rare to see ICE respond with lawful and appropriate force when they're threatened.
She was a disruptor, though she considered herself a legal observer. But there's no evidence she had a law degree.
And then he pops her off. He shoots her right here. Yeah, there it is. You see right there. Oh, wow. and then he shoots her. Gotcha, bitch! And then he shoots her a couple more times to finish her off. Absolutely rip fucking bozo.
We are living in a world where cheerleaders for state terror and outright murders of civilians by American Gestapo agents not only exist, but have huge platforms. Platforms they use to manufacture consent for, make excuses for, and praise the most indefensible actions taken by a regime that has openly embraced the mass deportation and murder of those it deems to be its political opponents and anyone else who might get in their way. I suppose indefensible isn't even the word anymore. Clearly people are defending it, demanding their audience don't believe the evidence of their own eyes and ears, and line up to shove their nose right up the arsehole of Donald Trump, Stephen Miller, Kirsty Noem, JD Vance, and everyone else who will, if there's any justice in the world, find themselves in a Nuremberg for the 21st century. These cheerleaders, most of which are acting as state propagandists for the Burger Reich of their own volition, unpaid by the administration, spend their days publishing endless praise poems for a regime that is not only kidnapping their fellow Americans en masse, but is murdering American citizens in the street. On New Year's Eve, Keith Porter was murdered by ICE. Only a week later, the world woke up to video from multiple angles of the murder of 37-year-old poet Renee Nicole Good, as her wife watched in horror. Detailed video from the New York Times, as well as footage from the phone of an ICE agent, shows an unmarked car approaching Renee Good, her dog in the back seat, and stuffed toys for her kids in the glove box as she waves cars past. She tries to wave the car approaching past too, not knowing who's inside. The American Gestapo get outside the car with guns. One of the ICE agents tells her to move. Another agent, filming the whole affair on his phone, contradicts the order and moves to obstruct her. He approaches her side window and switches his phone to his left hand so that he can draw his gun. Her last words are, "It's fine, dude. I'm not mad at you." She tries to move, and both feet on the side of the car, not in any danger, with his phone in his hand, still filming, he shoots her multiple times in the face and walks away muttering, "Fucking bitch." He then joins his friends, smiling, and his team prevents medical aid reaching her body.
Can I go check a pulse? No! Back up! Now! I'm a physician!
Hey, listen, we understand. We got EMS coming, and I get it. Just give us a second. We have medics on scene. We have our own medics.
Where are they? Where are they? How can I relax? You just my neighbor!
Even in death, the cruelty does not end. ICE agents desecrate her memorial on camera. The vice president and other government officials give long press conferences, smearing her as a domestic terrorist and accusing her of trying to murder the man who ended her life. And this was just the beginning, because the thousands of conservative influencers on the internet had already decided that the videos at the event showed something completely different to what the rest of us saw. They'd already been given their marching orders. No amount of evidence was about to change the narrative for them. Despite this all being on camera, and all being very clear, despite ICE having no authority to stop a US citizen, despite there being no justification for a confrontation at all, and despite public execution supposedly being illegal, some of the worst people on the internet spent the next few days celebrating her death, saying she deserved it, that she had it coming, that her murder was based, and that she was a bozo, that the ICE agent was a hero and the real victim.
The storm is here! When we come, one, we go all! No one can stop what is coming!
This included, of course, the most popular political streamer on the internet, Asmongold.
What their goal is they want to push this idea that you can be violent and aggressive and hostile and attack police officers, because if they can push that idea, then they can get the police officers to leave, right? And that's it. So it's not really about whether the police officer was in the right or the wrong. You can see the video. It very clearly, the woman was trying to run him over.
Yeah, rip bozo. They told her to get out of the car, and then she put it in reverse and tried to run over an officer and drive away. Comply with police and don't try to run them over.
and then he pops her off. He f***s her right here. Yeah, there it is. You see right there. Oh, wow. And then he f***s her. Gotcha, bitch. Absolutely rip fucking bozo. The only thing you have to do is crush them. You crush them completely. You never go, like, after you say, basically after you run one of them over, right? Or you shoot one of them for trying to run you over, then you victory lap around it and you send in more people and you do it even more.
They have to crush the other side.
That's right. 100% destroy everything about them. Put the mayors in jail, put the governors up on the Insurrection Act for sedition, put them in mandatory prison labor camps, authorize the police officers to respond with violence to them, bring in the military if you need to, take those people, charge them with incitement for them, put them in Guantanamo Bay. Like, I'm talking about scorched earth, Old Testament, get them the out.
This man is not a spokesperson for the United States government. He's not from a propagandist network for the right like Fox News, and he's not one of the many astroturfed media figures paid for by billionaires like the Wilkes brothers, like Ben Shapiro and Matt Walsh from the Daily Wire. Instead, this man made his fame streaming World of Warcraft, and has slowly, since the Depth v. Heard trial became the talk of the internet and he took a chance of streaming political content, became the voice for the far right on the biggest streaming platform in the world, on which he is the biggest political voice. He is the most glaring demonstration that the financial incentives of Twitch, of YouTube, and of Twitter can drive normal people into being fascist propagandists who spend every day spouting state propaganda. This man, who doesn't leave his house, who has no reason to expect that he would not meet the same fate as Renee Good were he in the same situation, spends all day, every day, making excuses for the administration's execution of a woman in cold blood. He said she deserved it. Rip bozo, he says, as a woman is murdered by the state. Twitch has refused to ban him. This is all in the service of smearing an innocent woman. Someone who, from everything we know about her, was a genuinely good and nice person. Renee Good described herself as a poet and writer and wife and mum and shitty guitar strummer from Colorado. She had a wife and was a mother to a 6-year-old child who has just been made an orphan, and 2 other children, by a giggling murderer by the name of Jonathan Ross, who walked away from her body to celebrate with his Gestapo friends, who actively prevented doctors from reaching her and then fled the scene of the crime. They wanted to make sure she was dead, and after she had passed, the right-wing mediosphere took it upon themselves to search for any and all reasons to blame Good for her own death. From deliberately misreading the camera footage, to claiming the national park stickers on the back of her car were organizations, to saying she deserved it because she had pronouns in her bio, realizing she's a lesbian and throwing homophobic slurs at her, claiming she was the victim of leftist ideology. The conservative mediosphere found every reason under the sun to deny the evidence right in front of them and smear the victim. It didn't happen, but if it did, it was good actually. Their precious secret police couldn't possibly have done anything wrong. A wife and mother, a life completely wasted because of leftist ideology corrupting her brain. That ridiculous flag in her bio is an indication of what her. There is now a child without a mother because of what this woman was brainwashed into doing. 100 years ago, I'm sure she would have been a very good person. A completely misplaced compassion. A senseless waste. I assumed she was LARPing as a bisexual or something. Didn't spot the lesbian mother part. Horrifying for the child all around. Never stood a chance. Now an even greater mess. It's a shame she's been mind, but this is her own fault. There is a non-zero possibility that antidepressants and ADHD medication gave that poor woman a false sense of reality as she gunned her Honda. I think without the drugs she'd have been paralyzed in fear, arrested, and still be alive to complain about it. Yeah, I do think that's a piece of the female crisis in America. She was a shit mum.
You get what's coming to you. I do not feel bad for the woman that was involved. Stay away from our law enforcement officers. The left believes they can do anything they want, and we're just supposed to sit down and take it. It's time for Americans to say enough And if you get in the way of the government repelling a foreign invasion, you're going to end up just like that lady did yesterday.
A lot has been said by many people smarter than me about how people will say things on the internet that they would never say in real life. If these conservative influencers had known her, if she had been their neighbour, their aunt, I doubt they would have been able to type the things these people have without vomiting from the overwhelming shame and disgust at what vile creatures they pretend to be online. To say these things about someone they don't even know, someone whose politics were entirely unclear, not a public figure, they have already decided that anyone who gets shot by law enforcement is undeserving of life. They have to strip her of her status as a human being for daring to be in the vicinity of a man who didn't like the look of her. They imagine themselves as the man with the gun in this scenario, looking down at the embodiment of every woman who's ever talked down to them, turned them down, said no to them in any context. Their 5th grade teacher, their mum telling them to go to bed. Instead, they are much closer to the victim in this scenario. And they cannot see that, because their niche on the internet has convinced them that they are in a kinship group with the brutal tyrants in power, when in reality, they are just like us. And when the jackboot slams them to the ground, no matter how much they try and lick the boot, it will stamp on their face just the same. One of the things that really gets to me about this entire thing is I think a lot of the people taking the side of the officer in this scenario have completely lost any sense of perspective when it comes to law enforcement. In most countries, if law enforcement murders someone, it's an outrage of biblical proportions, a scandal that lasts weeks, if not months, and that the public will riot over. In the United States, law enforcement has such a high body count that you have a large minority of people making excuses for it, and saying, well, if someone with a gun stands close to your car, of course he has the right to execute you in broad daylight. No. No one has the right to execute anyone. In fact, the state, given its massive power, and it being the body that has authority over the use of violence, should have a higher bar to clear than anyone. If you can accept that the state should just be able to randomly murder you if one of its legion of masked doofuses hears that someone is being rude to him, you are accepting that it's okay for you to be murdered in the street for no reason. Just out of basic survival instincts, you should be on the side of the state not being allowed to just execute people. But these people, it seems, don't see themselves as part of the general public. They're convinced they would never be in this scenario. How could they, when they're in the Donald J. Trump fan club? My president would never let me get hurt. How the hell would the ICE agent have known if she were a Trump supporter? You really fancy your chances? If it were you, people with exactly your flavour of brain rot would be online making excuses for why it was okay for you to be executed. Maybe like Renee Good, you have national park stickers on the back of your car they assume are organisations. Maybe you just look like a liberal. Donald Trump will not save you. In fact, he will immediately call you a domestic terrorist, and your fellow travellers will pull up your Instagram photos and try to paint you as an ideological enemy by trying to find the picture where you look the most gay. Speaking of the big beautiful boy himself, Donald Trump's initial statement, made obviously without considering any of the evidence since he later watched the footage with reporters and seemed disgusted with what he saw, made this all so much worse. He just lied. Something that JD Vance and Kristi Noem would also do with gusto. Admit nothing, lie about everything, smear everyone not lying as dangerous radicals and What you have to remember, however, is that for the influencers that have made it their mission to join in with the president's lies and paint his victims as inherently guilty, even if they've done nothing, and paint his collaborators as unassailable saints, Trump is the brand. They are brand ambassadors for this one man, marketers for the regime. They exist to sell Trump and Trumpism, and act as his PR team. They are not journalists, no matter what they might insist. They exist to spin the truth and to act as promotional material for Donald Trump. And not just to sell MAGA hats, but to sell his rule, his legitimacy as the Führer of this new Reich. When something looks bad, they do what any PR team would do. They spin it, they lie, and they twist the truth. Anything to change public perception. And they're even less accountable than most PR teams because they're doing PR for the guy who decides what the law is. And this is something oppressive regimes need. Because if you are constantly on the offensive against your own citizens, you are constantly risking revolt. This is something Stephen Miller's favourite historical figure, Adolf Hitler, knew all too well. In the article, Selling Hitler, Propaganda and the Nazi Brand, author Nicholas O'Shaughnessy writes, Nazism functioned as a brand. This is key to our understanding of the extraordinary success of the Hitler regime and galvanizing German public opinion. Nazis understood and manipulated the power of the brand, creating what amounts to a parallel universe of imagery and symbolism. The integuments of this brand strategy were the idea of Hitler himself and his projection, the stress on solidarity, the proclamation of a modernist utopia with ancient accents, and the construction of an existential threat to the German way of life. But underpinning these were the deployment of what have become classic marketing concepts, such as targeting and segmentation, and a perceptive comprehension of the idea of packaging. Beyond this, the regime was anchored in a kind of banality of ordinariness. It looked at many levels like a normal Western society, and this element was made more credible by the promotion of a vigorous consumer culture. In many ways, the Nazis were ahead of their time, masters of such political marketing arts as spin and rapid rebuttal. It remains an extraordinary truth that the essentials of the Nazi symbol system, as well as the idea of locating the regime within an ideology of propaganda, were defined by Hitler himself. His research is among archives to determine the particular style of the swastika, for example, and other corporate logos of the party, or the sketches of the People's Car. Hitler was created as a free-floating symbol of national greatness, the central consciousness, one actually detached from the daily realities of the regime. A part of this was a resurrection of the ancient idea that the king can do no wrong, only the evil advisors. The advantage of this image is that its essence was flexibility, and it could be changed, or at least nuanced, as circumstances dictated. It was only after Stalingrad that its magnetic powers began to fail. This is a lesson certain members of the Trump regime have internalized to various degrees of success. Funnily enough, in a very American twist of fate, it is the private sector, not the government spokespeople for the Trump administration, that have done a much more successful job of disseminating Trumpist propaganda and communicating the lesson that Trump is without fault, that he is America, and therefore all his enemies are America's enemies, and all of his actions are America's actions. The champions of this are not politicians, but people like the late Charlie Kirk, like Ben Shapiro and Matt Walsh of the Daily Wire. Much more successfully, Brett Cooper, Candace Owens, and Nick Fuentes, and the much more relatable to basement-dwelling 4chan goblins, despite his complete lack of intellectual capacity, or perhaps because of it, Asmongold. The corporate propaganda arm of the regime has been working overtime, many of them fueled by donations from the super-rich, to promote a regime that would off each of them in a heartbeat if an ICE agent looked at them funny. The upside of this is, with everything that's happening, that machine is kind of starting to fall apart. Following the departures of Candace Owens and Brett Cooper, the Daily Wire is disintegrating. Ben Shapiro, the flagship commentator of the network, is not getting anything close to the views he used to get, due in large part to the fact that he's ride or die for the state of Israel, and all of his audience have seen the videos out of Palestine for the last 2 years. And Matt Walsh, the other big name on that website, someone who just got caught DMing a 17-year-old and has defended doing more explicit things to teenagers in his pre-Daily Wire days, hasn't seen the success he really wanted after becoming a breakout star for making the What If Borat, a transphobic movie. On the other hand, Asmongold is huge. He sapped up a lot of their audience. But it looks like a lot of people are starting to get sick of him, especially in the wake of his celebration of this horrific incident. Nick Fuentes took a lot of their audience too, but he's in trouble with his audience now for trying to play nice with the mainstream, losing the sense of authenticity that brought his audience to him. Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson will, unfortunately, in the end, I believe be the ones to stick around. And the latter is incredibly frightening, given he'll almost certainly run for president one day, if the US even has elections after this. That aside for now, conservative commentary sphere is struggling to be the powerhouse of PR that it used to be. And that is sort of a symptom of the right being in power. It's much easier to critique those in power, to point the finger and point out where you disagree, throw stones from the outside of the house, than to champion those in power, to argue that the oppression of your viewers is not just okay, but good, and should be done more. And that is something Matt Walsh of the Daily Wire has leaned into incredibly forcefully in the wake of this latest tragedy, and earned himself a level of infamy I don't think he quite grasps the enormity of just yet.
This lesbian agitator gave her life to protect 68 IQ Somali scammers who couldn't give less of a shit about her. The most disgraceful and humiliating end a person could possibly meet. They're lying through their teeth about the woman who was shit, why she was shit, and what she was doing there in the first place. They always lie. Anyone who falls for it this time should be permanently dismissed and disregarded as either complicit in the propaganda or too hopelessly stupid to ever be taken seriously again. This is domestic plain and simple. Wait, but I was told that she was just an innocent soccer mum who got for no reason while sitting innocently in her car, probably on her way to pick up her child from ballet or something. Charlie Kirk was an innocent man for giving his opinion. This was an agitator for trying to interfere with 2 federal agents and then hitting one of them with her car. There is no comparison between the two. The left is right now trying to foment another round. If you think an agitator has the right to hit federal agents with their car to stop them from enforcing our immigration laws, then you are not only R-worded, but also evil and morally insane. And I don't recognise you as a good faith actor, a respectable human, or a fellow American. She was trying to stage an illegal blockade of the road to interfere with ICE agents, and then rammed her car into one of them when they attempted to apprehend her. This isn't even a close call. Entirely justified. She is 100% to blame for her own death. The victims are the ICE agents who are continually harassed and assaulted while trying to do their job and uphold the law of the United States. An easy way to not get shot by federal agents is to refrain from hitting them with your car. Basically the lowest possible bar. If you can't clear it, the consequences are your own fault. The death of the protester in Minnesota is solely the fault of 2 parties. 1. The protester herself, who drove her car into the federal agent. 2. Democrats, who have been fomenting chaos and violence against ICE for months. The first party has already suffered the consequence. The second party must suffer severe legal consequences. These Democrat politicians are pure evil. They've been explicitly fomenting violence against ICE agents for months. Now that one agent had a protester in a clear act of self-defense, they're pantsing in hopes of creating another George Floyd moment. These people have no soul. They want destruction. They want our country to be destroyed. Enemies of America. All of them. Enough is enough. It's totally irrelevant whether she was trying to hit the ICE agent or not. Either she wanted to hit him, or she wanted to evade arrest and escape and didn't care if she hit him in the process. There is zero moral or legal difference between those 2 scenarios. In either case, she's 100% to blame, and her death is her own fault.
This was not a mom running errands. This was not someone dropping her child off at school. She was trying to stage an illegal blockade of the road, okay, and which is a serious crime. So they're hounding the ICE agents the whole time. They're spitting on them, and then after the woman is while driving directly at an ICE officer, some guy shouts, "Dude, you did a murder." Yes, dude, you did a murder. That's how these imbeciles speak.
Matt Walsh is the epitome of the American Hasbroist. For days he was tweeting non-stop, making excuse after excuse for why Renee Good deserved what happened to her. That this was her own fault, and that even if it wasn't her fault, she was liberal and gay, so she deserved it. The latter is a line that's even more stark coming from another conservative influencer, however. One who really drills in on the opinion that Renee Good deserved what happened to her and more because of her sexuality, because of her politics, and because she just happened to be there. This next person, like Matt Walsh, makes it clear that these conservative influencers, from basement-dwelling cockroach infestants like Asmongold to those with a direct line to Donald Trump himself, decide who deserves to live and die based on whether they agree with them or not, and whether they are part of the in-group. If you're gay, you deserved it. If you're liberal, you deserved it. If you're a leftist, you deserved it. If you're trans, you deserved it. If you're black, you deserved it. Hell, if you were in the presence of a police officer and didn't immediately offer to bounce on it crazy style, you deserved it. No one was as mask-off about this idea, this outright fascist belief that all citizens must conform to their very limited idea of what is permitted, or die, than the far-right's very own sleep paralysis demon. A woman who looks like she has the Chad jaw filter on in real life. One of the most fervent Zionists on the internet. And someone who personally has the ear, and if rumours are to be believed, the penis, of Donald Trump, who described her as a free spirit, the woman who rode with Trump in Air Force One in the early days of the regime's current iteration, the woman best known for handcuffing herself to Twitter HQ.
Twitter, Facebook, Apple, Google, Instagram, they are essentially upholding Sharia. Silicon Valley is essentially upholding Sharia when they decide to ban me for posting facts about Islam.
Hitting on Nazis on camera.
Like an Aryan degenerate goddess.
Thank you.
I love it.
Thank you, thank you. You're Aryan too.
I know, but I'm Jewish.
And telling her plastic surgeon to give her the full handsome Squidward. Laura Loomer.
She's a far-right activist. She's actually someone who had a lot of access to the president while he was on the campaign trail.
Laura Loomer of Loomered.com and Loomer Unleashed is a far-right agitator and failed politician who fancies herself a journalist. In my opinion, she should be Loomer Leashed. She is also 32 years old, and despite being younger than me, looks like she's in her 50s. That's not a relevant political point, but once you see the shit she's been saying about Renee Good, you'll understand why I'm having a very hard time being civil about her. Laura Loomer is a prominent voice in conservative media, despite being completely batshit and sort of a lolcow. But she's had a really steep fall-off recently. As late as last April, news outlets were reporting that she had directly influenced Trump's policy agenda and his personnel decisions, resulting in multiple firings from national security officials, for example. But much more consequentially, for those of us who give a shit about human life and dignity, she was directly responsible for the Trump administration suspending all visitor visas for Palestinians from Gaza, many of whom were arriving in the United States for emergency medical treatment for injuries sustained during the on their people by Israel that the United States has armed, funded, and assisted with. Loomer, seeing dying children arrive for emergency medical care, screamed that the arriving Palestinians were Islamic invaders and jihadists, and that they needed to be rounded up and deported. Loomer, being the deranged monster that she is, demanded, "The Trump administration needs to shut this abomination down ASAP before a family member of one of these Gazans goes rogue and Americans for us." This message was endorsed by multiple Congresspeople, and it got her on the phone with Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and directly resulted in children dying. So, it's no surprise that she's okay with adults dying too. Laura Loomer is, you might have guessed, a massive Zionist, to the point where her falling off period, a fairly recent phenomenon, has come as a result of the increasing prominence of anti-Zionist and, unfortunately, genuinely anti-Semitic views on the far right. Because this is the far right, anti-Semites have always been part of this American movement, but they hid their power level at the start. They are no longer doing that. And Laura Loomer has realised, after helping put all these guys in a position of ultimate power on this planet, that the Leopards Eating Faces party did plan, in fact, to eat her face. Who could have seen that coming?
To the hostile takeover of the Republican Party.
Absolutely.
She also called people like me, by which I mean trans people, not British people, a national security threat and a terrorist movement. Which is very rich, coming from the person who said this about an innocent woman being murdered in broad daylight. An aggressive communist carpet muncher who fucked around and found out, that is all. She, her, literally every time. I don't care about dead communists. Who cares? Why do we have to pretend all life is equal? It's not, especially when you're a criminal. I don't care who this offends. It's the truth. Let me know when we have the name of the brave ICE agent who shot and domestic today. I want to set up a give, send, go for him. He was almost run over by a car for doing his job. You can literally see the fumes from exhaust, which proves the driver was accelerating. A vehicle is a weapon. Charge Tim Walsh with domestic. President Trump should implement the Insurrection Act if the Democrats riot in Minneapolis again. Don't let the Democrats make this lesbian woman the white gay George Floyd. Shut it down. The Democrats want a white lesbian George Floyd so bad. Same city too. Minneapolis, Minnesota. Almost makes you wonder if they planned it. Laura Loomer very clearly makes the case in her tweets that if you're a communist, if you're gay, if you're liberal, if you have pronouns in your bio even, you deserve to die. It's like she read the Martin Niemöller poem and thought it was an instruction manual instead of a warning. First, come for the communists, and they will not speak out. Come to think of it, people really haven't spoken out until this happened to a white woman. But that's also part of a lesson of that poem, isn't it? That without solidarity with all peoples, we will too fall victim to fascist monsters when they arise. You should fight back long before it gets to you. It's happened before. It's happening now.
This is your warning.
For what?
Stop f***ing following us. You are impeding operations. This is the United States federal government.
Over here. I gotta get to my house.
This is your warning.
Gotta get to
All
my
right?
house.
Go home to your kids.
Go to church.
Go to your kids. This is your last warning.
I serve the Lord.
I will arrest you. I guarantee you're not gonna like the outcome. Go home to your children. It's Sunday.
Yeah, go exactly. Let people go to church.
You did not learn from what just happened? Go home to your kids.
You can feel her disgust at the idea of lesbians existing so palpably in those tweets, and black people, and communists. To her, no one black, gay, or left-wing is a human being with the rights and due consideration that come with being a person. This is a common thread with these influences. Just look at what Asmongold says about Palestinians, or the way Matt Walsh talks about trans people. This is also a classic hallmark of fascism, stripping personhood from whole groups of people, declaring them enemies of humanity. It is a big step towards making extermination of entire peoples permissible, and has been successful time and time again. From Germany, to Bosnia, to Rwanda, to Palestine. Once media voices start speaking like this, given the speed and influence of mass communication in our modern age, things can get very bad very quickly. Even those like Asmongold, who is a symptom of people in power speaking like this and not patient zero, in turn spread this hateful ideology to thousands more every day due to the size of their platforms, and the parasocial connection the audience has to these media figures. Their audiences trust them. They're authentic. They see them all the time. They see them almost as a friend. And their friend wouldn't lie to them, would they? Influencers, media personalities, trusted public figures, captured by the fascist way of thinking, can scarily easily sway the public towards the far right. Just look at the case of the Rwandan radio station, give me a moment to pronounce this properly in French, Radio Télévision Libre de Mille Collines, which spread violent and hateful messages about the Tutsi to the point that 3 of its journalists were eventually convicted of incitement to by the International Criminal Court. The fact that the rhetoric from the far right in the USA is so bold, and so many people with huge followings are outright excusing murder like this, is a symptom of a society that is well on its way to manufacturing consent for extermination.
Il est 16h22 à Kigali, dans le blindé de la FLM. Avis à tous les individus qui nous écoutent. Oui, à tous les individus qui nous écoutent. Le Rwanda appartient à ceux qui le défendent vraiment. Et vous, les individus, vous n'êtes pas des Rwandais.
abatwumva ko nyine abantu bose bahagurutse kurwanya inyenzi n'ababwiye abasirikare bacu nibo ba mbere babwira urubyiruko rwagutse kugira ngo bafashe abasirikare bacu babwira inkumi babwira abasore murabyumva rero inyenzi ntabwo zishobora gukandira abantu bose.
Remember, we literally had video of the ICE officer completely on the side of the vehicle and walking away, clearly unharmed, not limping, just walking normally, smiling even, as he approaches his colleagues and they smile at each other in a move that should make you understand, if you didn't before, why we say abolish ICE. And once Trump made his statement and made it clear the plan was just to lie, his sycophants followed. From barely human homunculi like Asmongold, like Laura Loomer, like Matt Walsh and the Zoomer historian, and every blue checkmark on X.com, the CSAM generation app. We have to live in a world where on video we can see exactly the crimes the regime is committing in the name of flooding the streets of its own cities with Gestapo designed to intimidate and kidnap anyone whose skin can survive upwards of 10 seconds of sun exposure without bursting into flames. And then we have to watch as hundreds of sycophants fall over themselves to create an alternate reality where that didn't happen, but if it did, it was good, actually. where the goalposts move with every word of an argument, because none of these people care about the truth. They are more than happy to grift off the bodies of their fellow citizens, completely without shame, without morals, and without, frankly, survival instincts. Does Asmongold really think that ICE wouldn't do the same to him if he was in that car that day? And once you make it clear that the regime can get away with this, they won't stop. Once offing civilians for no reason is established as something you can just do and get away with, you could be next. And there would be no justice for you. And if you were next, there would be another streamer right behind you streaming your violent end and making bank ranting about how you too deserved it. And that they simply wouldn't have been in that situation to start with.
Absolutely rip bozo.
And listen, I know the level of violence in the States right now, especially at the hands of law enforcement, is so ridiculous that it might be hard to imagine this, but no one should be allowed to execute people in the street. That includes law enforcement, that includes police, and it certainly includes unidentifiable meathead Gestapo assholes like Jonathan Ross. Do you really want to make the argument that it's perfectly acceptable for people to just get dealt with in the street? Do you know that you're included in people? You aren't immune to state violence just because you cheer it on. In fact, even some of the regime's loyalists may yet fall victim to the violence they are enacting. Just look at Mike Pence. Just look at the Night of the Long Knives. If you don't know what that is, well, I'm not surprised. You've never read a book. In fact, I'll go further than that. It's not just that these people don't read books to develop their understanding of the world, but that they get their understanding of the world entirely from tweets and YouTube videos. And not even factual videos, but right-wing regime slop. And no regime slop video has done more damage in recent weeks than Nick Shirley's video trying to paint the entire Minnesotan Somali community as a criminal ring committing mass fraud.
Trying to find little Joey a spot to put himself in one of these centers here. Yeah, because we want to make sure we're going to legit business if we're going to bring our little boy Joey here. Are there children here?
Please leave.
Where are the children?
Because I've had enough of this dude.
This is the event that led to ICE being deployed in Minneapolis, which led to this tragedy. A slop trooper walking up to daycares and demanding to see the children.
Are there children here?
Please leave.
Where are the children?
Now be honest. If you worked at a daycare, and a nervous-looking youth with a bunch of cameras came to your door and talked extremely unconvincingly of trying to find a daycare for little Jimmy and to let them inside, would you let them in? But the way the right viewed this incredibly poor excuse for journalism, from a guy who told the Seacot torture prison in El Salvador and thought it was awesome, was painted by the ideas they came in with. They hate immigrants, and they hate black people. This guy comes in and says Somalis in Minnesota are running a massive fraud scheme. They instantly believe it. They don't question the credibility of these guys' findings. They don't think critically about what this would involve, and they ignore the fact that the person who did start a string of frauds in Minnesota around these institutions was a white woman. Because they wanted to use this as an excuse to paint all Somalis as criminals, leeching off real Americans. And who is a real American? Well, from the responses of these influencers and from, well, history, you can probably guess they don't mean the actual native population of the country. From that point on, their narrative becomes fixed, and if you disagreed with it, you were either siding with the enemy or you were the enemy. To put this simply, if you disagree with the regime, to regime loyalists, you are fundamentally not a person. And when your humanity is stripped from you, so are your rights as a human being. And the state can do anything it wants to you, without consequences.
This is classic, and we cannot say that when a far left fringe is inciting violence against our brave law enforcement officials, that we're no longer going to
It doesn't matter to these influencers what Rennie Nicole Good may or may not have done. They had already decided she was guilty before a single video had been out, because if they were to accept that she's not guilty, that would mean that ICE did something wrong, and that is fundamentally something they cannot allow to be true. And you can see this in the lack of any logical coherence to their arguments, the shifting of goalposts every time they're debunked, the new excuses they come up with on the fly to continue their narrative, the number of smears they try to come up with to say that no matter what happened, Good deserved what she got. And this is hard to look at and not feel insane, because if you aren't completely wedded to the Trump regime, you can very easily recognize that these people are arguing for their own rights to be stripped away. These influencers are in a parasocial relationship with the president, and they think he would protect them if ICE were to come for them. They are dead wrong. These propagandists, whether they are doing it willingly or not, send the message to their millions of followers that by the very nature of being a victim of ICE, you deserved it. No one who was could possibly have been innocent. And the next guilty person, the next Renee Good, could be you, your partner, your mum, your dad. No matter what you have been told, no matter who has told you otherwise, you are not safe from this terror. Thankfully, I believe people are starting to wake up. Support for ICE is plummeting. Support for abolishing ICE, it's rapidly rising. Thousands are protesting across the country. I just hope that they are willing to keep a sustained fight, because this will get worse before it gets better. Donald Trump recently posted that the Day of Reckoning is coming. Oh good! I love the Day of Reckoning! Stay strong, because you cannot fight this if you're willing to roll over when things get difficult. And I have hope here, because I am seeing people way more conservative than myself saying the right things, genuinely outraged and recognizing these monsters for what they are. For one example, Stephen Colbert, who is way more conservative than I am, making the stark case that anyone is fair game for these people. And no matter who you are, if you meet your end at the hands of the American Gestapo, these influencers, the very people who you listen to day in and day out, will blame you for your own murder. They will smear you in every way they can. They will get grok to put your dead body in a bikini, and they will paint you as the enemy. Remember this, to these commentators, to these people who you admire so much, you will be judged to be ontologically evil.
So the message from this administration is clear. Only they determine the truth. When their forces come to your city, obey or die. And if you die, you clearly didn't obey.
I believe in the power of the people. With enough of us standing together, we can achieve so much more than most of us could ever dream of. There is a real opportunity in the wake of this awful tragedy to put a halt to these horrors. This could be a turning point. We need to make this a turning point. Because if we can't roll this thing back soon, there may be no going back. And you go to wave them through. Your cheerleading won't save you. They'll put a bullet in you too. Hey, thanks for watching this video all the way to the end. I know it was heavy. It took me a very long time to we'll go through the drafts of this and put all the information I wanted in there because of this. So thank you for waiting for 2 weeks. I was really hoping I would have a video out the first week of January. So second week, that'll do, donkey. If you like this video, like is a strong word, I suppose. Give it a like, leave a comment, subscribe, tell your friends about it. Do share it. I put a lot of work into this, and as much as it's depressing, I think it's important. You can also, if you like, give me money to help me out because, yeah, I need it. Moving has been expensive and it's hard here. Breakup bad, sad times all around, and I've been having a really bad mental health couple of months for obvious reasons, and well, it would help me not have as many mental breakdowns if I could also, you know, spend money on things that I need without also feeling bad. So if you want, I don't know if that sounds so depressing, I'm sorry. If you want to help, you can send me one-time donations on Coffee or PayPal, links below as always. You can buy a t-shirt from my shop, or you could sign up to, and this is the best part, my Patreon or my YouTube memberships, where you get uncensored versions of these videos. No beeps, no beeps. Early videos, when they're ready early, access to the members-only Discord, my Nintendo Switch friend code, exclusive content such as long-form interviews that I got up there, and yeah, and stream archive footage 1 week early. Once I start doing that, I really need to get on the streaming thing. I'm thinking of doing, but like, Baldur's Gate as Keir Starmer. Is that something people would watch? I mean, I'd enjoy it. I guess that's all that matters in the end. If you want to see Starmer's Gate 3, you can subscribe to that. And if you sign up, get your name read out at the end of each video. You'll also get that, like this. This is what I'll do for you. I'll read your name out after all of this. Oh my god. Ken Sorten, Andrew Steele, Georgie, Carlita Del Monzoze, Anna Nicholson, Dungeon Slime, Naomi Gorman, Melody, Ben Norman, Brooklynet, Heidi Law, Transform and Function, Cara Patching, Mattia98, Zoffrey, Lilith Dawn, Spin Noir, Victor Lufgren, Gil the Gilded Dragon, A Slice of Cake, Rue, Kawaii Esquire, Charlie Hallam, Buried Elk, Ewan Bennett, Bags, Mao TM, Gina Service, You Are Made Off Stupid, Tomo, Melissa Jackson, Ren, Approves of Your Stuff, Minstrel, of course, Jeffreyon, Tom, the Not Quite So Brave as Sir Lancelot, LFR, Treequoy, Ariella, Proquar, Robin Thomas, Emily Eisenberg, Kathy 1410 Itchy, Garlic Scape, Kira B, No Sparkling Heart, Corey, Gianna J, Mighty than the Sword, Carolyn, Imogen Q, Luciano Frias Andrade, Adam, Harry, Ndoc191, Cav, Quesadilla de Tortilla Azul, Leron, Adam Lees, Daniel Neville's No Not That Paul, MB, Wondering Wonder, Ash Murphy, Lex Phoenix, Enter the Crisis, Mira D, Jade Senior, Boa Ea, James W, Thoron Deborah Laboon, Zilla's Athenaeum, Vince Whitaker, Amelia the Set, Jason Haig, Frank McManus, Susan Foster, Helena Real, Sierra Whiskey, Ali Catgill, John N, Lloyd Luciente, Jason Cribbett, Shield Baden, Robin Podolsky, Nightlight Plushy Jesus, Casual Observer, Manta Ray, Courtney Burmack, Sleepy Slug, Phil Petrobroga, Sober Piglet, Brain Douche, Artie Wolf, Deanna McMillan, Caroline Regalado, Alexandra Lilly, PJ Lisbrel, Howard Lott, Nernia, Eva Kebab, Marty Hunt, Robert McClellan, Jane Luciferian, Melissa Allen, Ataraxis, Bills Things, and Sarah Francesca Smith. Thank you all so much for helping support the channel and supporting me through this time. And please help people, stand up for your neighbours, look out for each other. Frankly, do what Renee Good was doing. It's important work. Make sure your neighbours are safe. Protect them. Don't let the Gestapo take them. And, well, organise in ways that I cannot necessarily talk about online. Bye-bye black shirts. Fuck them. No pass around. All right. You know what to do. I'll stop talking because I'll say something not going to be banned, probably. But fuck this. This is horrible. I hate this. And hopefully the evil will be over soon.